All right, all right, all right. Here we are back again. Happy Thursday to everyone out there. Hopefully, yesterday's video was a big help. Yesterday's stream helped you guys get some cash money. Not everything worked out in our favor. Not everything worked out in our favor, but a lot did, I think. A lot did for a lot of people out there. Guys, let me know in the comment section who let you down. Who was your biggest letdown? Who was the guy that you had high hopes for? For me, it was probably Brandon Ingram and his points prop. Ant Edwards, probably another guy on his 3-point prop who just didn't come through for us, unfortunately. But despite the shortcomings, there were a lot of successes that came out of yesterday's live stream, and hopefully we can run it back today. If this is your first time here, thank you so much for tuning in and joining me this morning as we start things off with some proper research on your daily player props over on PrizePicks. PrizePicks is our reference site of the day, and if you don't play on PrizePicks yet, you can get a 100% instant deposit match on your first deposit all the way up to $100. That's a dollar for dollar price match on anything that you put in for the first time over on PrizePicks. Just use promo code Curry to take advantage of this offer today. So a little bit of a shorter NBA slate. It's going to be kicking off here later on in the evening, so we got plenty of time to do research. So hopefully this video kind of gets things going for you, starts things off on the right foot, and leads you to some winning entries this evening over on PrizePicks. Appreciate everybody tuning in. Definitely drop a like on this video. Your likes, your subs, you sharing this video with anybody out there who might be interested in it. It all helps me grow as a content creator. And man, you guys killed it yesterday. You smashed our like goal. Our like goal was 100 likes and you guys went well over 100 likes. So I appreciate it. I'm going to set it at 100 again. Why not? Let's run it back. Let's run those numbers up. Let's go over 100 likes for 2 days in a row. That would be a tremendous accomplishment, a tremendous feat. So we're going to use props.cash to take a look at some of the points, rebounds, assists, and 3-point makes for the various categories over on PrizePicks. If you don't use props.cash, it's a fantastic way to do your props research. You could do a monthly pass, a month-to-month pass for just $19.99. If you want to do a full year, you can do that as well for the entire NBA season. It's just $99.99. There's going to be links down in the description below. Also, links to all my social medias. If you want to follow me, you can follow me on Twitter at Curry the Creator. I'm also on all the other social media platforms under Curry the Creator. You can join the Discord. You can support me on Patreon. I try to give back. Last night, we had a fantastic fantasy points spreadsheet that I put out there that seemed to help a lot of people who played it, and they won some money, taking some unders on fantasy points. That seems to be the trend lately. So links to everything down in the description below. But enough of that. Let's go ahead and see what's happening here. We're gonna take a look at some of the point props that are popping off, and the first one looks like Rudy Gobert, who has a 100% hit rate. So we're gonna go through the different categories, and then I'll go over to the chat and we'll take your questions. That's typically how we format things. So Rudy Gobert, 100% hit rate. Jacob Poeltl, however you say his name. Evan Fournier, Demar Derozan, John Collins. A lot of guys with high hit rates. So we'll definitely get into all of those player props. Let's look at the game tonight, the slates tonight. Starting things off here, we got Atlanta at Washington, which starts at 7 p.m. As far as injuries go, got a ton of them on this particular game, mostly from the Washington side. We've got Gill, Dinwiddie, Neto, and Gafford, all game time decisions. Out for Washington will be Bryant, Winston, and Hachimura. And then on the Atlanta side of things, Lou Williams is going to be a GTD game time decision, and Okongwu continues to be out for the Atlanta Hawks. Scrolling on down here, we got Detroit at Philadelphia. On the Philadelphia side of things, Joel Embiid is a game time decision once again. He ended up playing the other night despite being a GTD a couple nights ago. Riller, Milton, and Simmons all out for Philly. On the Detroit side of things, we've got Grant, Cunningham, and Livers. I don't know how you say it, but those are your injuries for the Detroit side of things. For the next game, we got Utah at Houston. This game tips off at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. No injuries for the Houston side of things. They seem to be completely healthy, which is a good thing. For the Utah side, we've got Bogdanovich, Oni, Pascal, and Gay is going to be out. He's the only one that's confirmed out at this time. New York at Chicago, 8 p.m. Nerlens Noel is going to be out, or a game time decision rather, for New York. For the Chicago Bulls, we got Levine as a game time decision, and Kobe White is out for the Chicago Bulls. San Antonio at Dallas, Over on the Dallas side of things, Kristaps Porzingis, game time decision. If he's out, that's a potentially major impactful piece of injury news. And then for the San Antonio Spurs, I'm not going to say that guy's name, but you see it. K-Sock, I don't know how to say it. Collins and McDermott confirmed out. And then finally, the last game, the late night hammer, Memphis at Golden State. Tipping off at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Out for Memphis, Dillon Brooks. For the Golden State Warriors, we've got Kuminga as a game time decision. Out for Golden State will be Klay Thompson and James Wiseman. So hopefully that kind of gives you an idea of the size of the slate, how many games we've got, some of the injury news to be looking out for closer to lock, because that type of thing makes a big difference. So we're going to hit on a couple of the ones that have a high hit rate in terms of player props if they're up on the PrizePicks board. And it looks like today PrizePicks has a pretty nice, juicy full board this morning. So we'll start it off with Rudy Gobert, who's at 14.5 points. As you can see, the reason I'm talking about him, he's got a 100% cover rate so far. So let's get into Props.Cash here, and we'll look at Rudy Gobert and his 14.5 point prop. We'll see how often he's been covering. Obviously, it's 100%, but get a little more info on this player prop and the matchup and all that good stuff. So let's go find Rudy Gobert. He is right here, and we've got him set up at 14.5. Let's just look at the last 5 games. These game logs still have some games from last season. Until these game logs get filled out with games from this season, you're going to continue to see a couple of games from last season. But overall, in his first 3 games, 16 points, 17 points, and 23 points. So he's done a pretty good job at covering 14.5, going for 15 or more in 3 straight games. That was against Oklahoma City, Sacramento, and Denver. Now, Denver was probably the toughest matchup, and you could see he had his best scoring night. So he can get it done, even against the tough matchups. If we go back to last season and look at how well he did against Houston, he had 14, 19, and 13 in 3 games against Houston. That was just a 1 out of 3 cover rate, 33% hit rate. Not very good, but hopefully things change tonight if you're looking to take the over on Rudy Gobert. He is currently a minus 122 to go under 14.5 points, so there's not a lot of faith. The money's not going toward the over on Rudy Gobert at this point, despite him going 3 for 3 and covering this prop in 3 consecutive games. If we move it down and look at the Houston defense, give you an idea of how this matchup rates for Rudy Gobert. Their overall defensive rating is 27th, so they're darn near last in the NBA in terms of defensive rating overall. They're almost last in points allowed overall. And in terms of center defense, they are second to last. So this is a very good matchup for Rudy Gobert. This has the potential for a blowout, though. The Utah Jazz, obviously a much better team than the Houston Rockets. So be careful when you take overs on any of these stars like Gobert. In a situation where it could be a blowout, these guys might not get a full run of minutes. They might not get a full complement of minutes. If you look at his minutes, though, 29 minutes to start things off against Oklahoma City, 32 and then 33. Of course, we want these guys out on the floor as much as possible. When they're out there getting minutes and running around, they get an opportunity to score points, rebounds, assists, fantasy points, whatever it is you like to play. We need them out on the court, though. So kind of gives you an idea on Rudy Gobert. Let's take a look at a projection for Gobert. And we could do that here by looking at Number Fire. Number Fire offers completely free projections. All you have to do is just sign up with a free Google account. So let's do that real quick. We'll type in Gobert's name. And they've got him projected for 11.9 points, which isn't very many. That puts him well under 14.5. So you've got the action over on the various sports books coming in on the under at 14.5 points, and you got a projection of around 12 points. So that's also an under, but that kind of flies in the face of his recent game log. So that's your first point prop. Let's talk about another one here. Somebody a little more sexy, a little more exciting than Rudy Gobert. How about we go to Ja Morant? Now, Ja Morant, for a lot of you guys out there, you probably took overs on Ja Morant last night, and I can't blame you. Over on his fantasy points, over on his real life points, you probably did all of the above. Ja Morant currently not on the PrizePicks board, but let's talk about him because I feel like he's going to be one of those hot button type of players that people want to know about. Obviously, he's been balling out. The matchup tonight against Golden State is going to be electric. So even though he's not on the PrizePicks board, let's dig into his game logs because he does have a pretty high success rate in covering today's point prop of 26.5. I think that's probably where we'll see him initially when he's posted up to the PrizePicks board, but you know how PrizePicks does. They could put him up at 27.5, they could put him down at 25.5, or they could just round off the hook and put him up at 26. And, make our lives a little more difficult. But as you can see for Ja Morant, he's got 4 games in his game log so far this season, 37, 28, and 40, covering today's point prop of 26.5, if that is where they put him up at PrizePicks. But then last night, just 17 points against the Portland Trail Blazers in what I thought was a pretty friendly matchup against Portland. Portland typically not very good defensively in terms of defending opposing guards, but Ja Morant just didn't have it clicking last night in terms of scoring the basketball. Now against Golden State last year, you got 4 game logs that we could look at. 14, 14, 16. Those are all well under his potential line of 26.5. But he did have a 35-point outburst against Golden State back on May 21st. So, Ja Morant definitely can get it done, and he's shown this season that he can get it done. But let's go look at the defensive matchup against Golden State and see how that shakes out for him. Overall, Golden State, very good defensive team this year, 5th overall in total defense. In terms of points allowed, they rank 18th. They're allowing the 18th most points allowed. And then defending point guards, they actually rank 4th. So this could be another tough matchup for Ja Morant tonight. Be careful taking the overs on this one. I know typically for me, when I go to a prop and it doesn't hit, I like to go back to that prop in a bounce back type of situation. But this could be one of those games where it's a back-to-back struggle bus situation for Ja Morant, because Golden State does defend opposing guards really well. Now, if we look at his field goal attempts over the course of the season so far, 29 attempts in game 1. Now, that number has come way down, 19, 21, and just 12 shots against Portland. So kind of up and down in terms of his field goal attempts. You'd like to see him attempting 20-plus field goal attempts per game. That would be fantastic. And if you look at his three-point attempts, attempted just 4 in the first game, and then that goes up to 7, 7, and 6. So, maybe he needs to stop shooting so many threes and start attacking the basket and getting to the free throw line. Speaking of getting to the free throw line, 2 attempts in his first game, 8, 11, and just 5 last night. So maybe him getting to the free throw line gets him in a little bit more of a rhythm if he's attacking the hoop. Let's cap this prop off real quick, though, with a projection from our friends over here at Number Fire and see where they've got Ja Morant lining up tonight. I just don't see him getting 26.5. They've got him at 25.7 points, so they like the under. 25.7, we round that up, that's 26. That puts him under 26.5 ever so slightly. So appreciate you guys filing into the chat. Thank you so much for coming in and checking it out. We got 41 viewers. Let's get it, guys. Let's get it. Leave a like on this if this is helping you out with your player prop research. I'm sure they will add Ja Morant later. I know he's not up there now, but they will add him later. Mark my words. I just have a feeling. All right, so we've got a couple of point props out of the way. Let's talk about some assist props. Ja Morant's up there again, but we just talked about him for points, so we're going to skip over that for the assists. Let's look at somebody else who has a high assist rate on the board. You guys, somebody made a joke about talking about RJ Barrett in the chat. Listen, I'm not going to do it. I ain't going to RJ Barrett. Not going to do it. Let's see who they have up here, though. Evan Fournier at 75% hit rate on 2.5 assists. Okay, let's dig into it. We don't talk a lot about Evan Fournier. As a Orlando Magic fan, Fournier was, once upon a time a long-tenured member of the Orlando Magic. I got to show my boy a little bit of love here. Let's talk about Evan Fournier. He's been covering this prop of 2.5 assists 75% of the time to start the season off, so that's a pretty strong number. Let's dig into it a little bit. In his last 4 games, he has gone over 2.5 assists in 3 out of 4 games. 3 against Boston. Now that was a double overtime game, so that took extra time for him to hit that prop. 3 against his former team in the Orlando Magic, and then a back-to-back against the Magic, he drops down to 1. But then he comes back strong against Philadelphia in his last game, dropping 4 assists. Right now, we're seeing the action at a -114 on the under, -106 on the over, so it's not a clear-cut picture in terms of where the money's coming in. And then we can look at last year against Chicago in 2 meetings. I think he was a member of the Magic still, at least in this first game. Chicago, he had 4 assists, and then Chicago again, he had 3. So he covered in both of the games, probably playing for 2 different teams at that point. Let's scroll down here and look at the matchup against the Chicago Bulls. Bulls defense overall, they rank 11th. In terms of assists allowed, pretty stingy, 10th. They rank in the top 10 in terms of assists allowed, so not a ton of assists going Evan Fournier's way. So he needs his teammates to make shots in order for him to hit this prop. And we know that the Boston Celtics do, the Boston Celtics. He's with New York now. We know the New York Knicks have plenty of shot makers on their team. So let's take a look at Fournier's assist prop. They got him at 3.2, guys, over on Number Fire. 3.2. 4.2. So that would put him over, obviously, on the 2.5 assist prop. Welcome everybody who's just now joining the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. Drop a like on this. Let's go for another video where we get 100 plus likes. That would be fantastic. And I think we're about to hit 1,900 subscribers. So if you're not subscribed yet, please do so now. Make sure notifications are turned on so that when I go live, you don't miss out on any of these videos that I post, these live streams. Appreciate you supporting so much. Let's see. We got another assist prop to look at. Zach Levine. He was a GTD, a game time decision, but let's go ahead and talk about him real quick because he's been covering 75% of the time at 4.5 assists. So let's take a look at Zach Levine real quick, and we'll dig into to his potential to go over or potentially under on this particular prop. So we've got him loaded up here on props.cash. The first 4 games start things off against Detroit. Then he goes against New Orleans, Detroit again, and Toronto. So he's covered in 3 out of 4 games. He's averaging, about 5, we'll say about 5 assists per game. A little between 4 and 5, we'll say. But he's covered in 3 out of 4 games. So that's where that 75% hit rate's coming from. Against the Knicks last year in 2 matchups, he goes under in the first one, over in the second one. An average of 5 assists if you combine those 2 outputs. Scrolling down here, he's a minus 122 to go under currently at 4.5 assists. That could be partly due to the fact that he is a current game time decision. So that number is expected to probably change closer to tip off. But looking at the rankings here in terms of the New York Knicks and their defense, they rank 3rd overall. And in terms of assists allowed per game, they rank 6th. So they're pretty formidable in terms of defense, and 7th overall against opposing shooting guards. So let's go ahead and take a look at a projection here for Zach Levine, and then we will move on to some rebounds and talk rebound props. He's at 4.7 right now, according to Number Fire. So they like him going slightly over the 4.5, 4.7 rounded up. It's obviously 5. We need him to have 5 dimes or more if we're looking to take the over on this particular prop. Appreciate you guys. Up to 56 viewers. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. Thanks for supporting, all the likes and subs and comments and all the props that you guys are liking. Leave them in the chat, and I'm going to go back after I'm done with the rebounds and 3-point makes, and then we're gonna take some questions from chat and do some research for you live and in living color here. So we head on over to the rebound category. It looks like PrizePicks is starting to upload even more props to the board. Good news for us. Yesterday they were kind of falling behind, unfortunately, and we didn't get to talk about as many props as we would have liked. So let's take a look here at their rebound trends. According to props.cash, Dorian Finney-Smith popping off with 100% hit rate at 5.5 rebounds. Is he up on the board? I think I took him the other night. They had rounded him up to 6, and he currently is at 6. At 6 rebounds, I mean, he's covered in every single game. Let's take a look at it. Let's talk Dorian Finney-Smith real quick, because he has yet to go under 6 rebounds in any game this season. So that is a good sign. At least there's a baseline there of at least 6 rebounds that we can kind of hang our hat on. So we'll click Dorian Finney-Smith. Now the cool thing about props.cash is that when there is a situation like this where a player's prop is different on a site like PrizePicks versus where it's at on various sports books, well, we can take this little line down here and we can move it over from 5.5 and bump it up to 6 so that we can get an apples to apples, a 1-to-1 comparison versus PrizePicks. So if you don't play on PrizePicks and maybe you're locking in player props over on some other site that has them at 5.5, I think the 5.5, you should be taking the over here. Now at 6, there's a chance he pushes. But if we look at the game logs here, back on game 1 against Atlanta, 8 boards, another 8-board performance against the Raptors. And then I had mentioned before, I took him over on 6 rebounds and he ended up pushing. So pushes aren't the worst thing in the world. It's better than you taking the over and then the guy ends up going under. But, you know, pushes, they don't quite pay as much. As far as how he did last year against San Antonio, 7 boards in the first game back on March 10th. And then in the rematch on April 11th, another 7 rebound performance. So he's went over in 2 previous matchups dating back to last season against the San Antonio Spurs. So that's a good vote of confidence here. Now, in terms of where this prop is, it's minus 142 to go over 5.5. Now you can see why PrizePicks went and rounded that number up from 5.5 up to 6. Makes a lot of sense. Scrolling down here, looking at the San Antonio Spurs and their defense, their overall defensive rating is 18th. In terms of rebounds allowed, they are second to last in the entire league at rebounds allowed. So that should make you perk up a little bit. That should make your eyes get big and for you to take a closer look at this Dorian Finney-Smith rebound prop. The Spurs are not very good at keeping other teams off the glass. They rank 24th in offensive rebounds allowed and 28th against defensive rebounds. So pretty good prop here, I think, for Dorian Finney-Smith. I would definitely lean toward the over on him. And worst case scenario, you end up with 6 rebounds and it's a push again. That's okay though, because you don't really lose money when that happens. Let's take a look at him on Number Fire. We'll look at a projection, give you guys an idea of where they've got him. They've got him at 5.4 rebounds, which puts him slightly under the 6 mark, closer to 5 than 6, obviously. So if you believe in these projections, then they suggest you go under, but they're not always right. Projections are not facts, unfortunately. So let's look at another rebound prop. Appreciate you guys leaving those comments in the chat. Thank you so much for all of your inquiries and your player props and everything. I'm so happy that I can get on here and help you guys out with all of your player prop research. Let's take a look at another rebound prop. Rudy Gobert, he is up to 14.5 boards. Guys, I was loving it when he was at 12.5 boards in his last game. They have finally corrected Rudy Gobert, and PrizePicks has taken an even more aggressive stance on his rebounds. He's all the way up to 15 on PrizePicks, but you could see why, right? 21, 20, 16. The guy has been cleaning the glass with great regularity. We won't talk about him just due to the fact that that number is so high. I'm going to probably stay away from it, but let's talk about John Collins. John Collins at 8.5 boards. Let's see if we've got him up on PrizePicks yet. Doesn't look like they've posted John Collins up on PrizePicks yet, but we're going to do it anyway. Let's do it. We'll do it live. Let's go find Atlanta versus Washington. We'll switch this over from assists to total rebounds and talk about John Collins, who has a high hit rate so far on his rebound prop. So he's at 8.5 boards currently over on props.cash. That's probably where you'll find him on most sports books out there. No telling where PrizePicks will have him up. He's just not up on the board yet for rebounds. But first game, 9 boards, comes back with an even stronger performance against Cleveland, 12, falls back down to earth a little bit with just 7 against Detroit, and then against New Orleans, a big game. Another 12 rebound output for him. Now against Washington last year, 3 games we can look at. 8, 8, and 6. At 8.5 boards, he failed to cover in all 3 games. That puts him at just 7.3 rebounds per game on average in 3 total games against Washington last season. Let's take a look and see how Washington is this season, though, because that's what really matters. In terms of rebounds allowed, they rank 24th. They are a bottom feeder. They are one of the worst teams at keeping the opposition off of the glass. So this could be a great situation here for John Collins. Washington ranks just 25th in terms of offensive rebounds allowed and 24th in defensive rebounds allowed. So there you have it for JC John Collins. Let's look at a projection for his rebounds real quick. I will type his name in. And you can see they've got him at 7.6 boards. So if his line comes out on PrizePicks at 8.5 rebounds, it suggests that maybe we should be thinking about going under on this particular player prop. So despite his 75% hit rate, the projections don't seem to like him going over 8.5 boards. So there you have it for JC, Mr. John Collins. Now, last but not least, we're going to wrap my segment up by looking at some three-point player props, and then we will take some questions from chat. So if you have any questions, any particular player props that are standing out to you, leave them in the chat now, and I'm going to get to them right after we're done looking at some three-point trends. Let's see who they have up here. They got Christian Wood, who is at 1.5 threes over on props.cash, but he's at 2 threes over on PrizePicks. Now, this is kind of surprising to me because I don't think of Christian Wood as being a guy who's attempting and making very many three-pointers. But so far, at 1.5 threes, he's at a 100% hit rate. So let's look at Christian Wood real quick, shall we? Because this is interesting. A big man who is not traditionally an outside shooter, has a high hit rate on a three-point prop. So they've actually got him up on PrizePicks, so we might as well take a look at him. So if we go to the three-point category here on props.cash, they got buttons across the top here for every single statistical player prop that you can think of. And then if we shift this line, you're going to watch what happens here. He's at 1.5 right now, but watch what happens. I'm going to move this to the right a little bit. It's going to go from 1.5 and it's going to jump up to 2, but you'll see what happens with the bar graph. Watch. Boom. So a lot of that green goes away and it turns to gray. Now, gray on props.cash means that this guy has covered, but it's a push. Basically, it's a tie, in other words, if you're unfamiliar with that term push. So in the first game against Minnesota, he makes 2 threes. Against Oklahoma City, 4 threes. Then you got 2 against Boston, 2 against Dallas. So pretty interesting here. 3 out of the 4 games, he has actually hit exactly 2 3-pointers. And then 1 game, he's actually went over. So if I was taking this prop, just based on what I'm seeing out of his first 4 games, I would be taking the over on this prop and hope for a push, but really hope that he goes over and somehow he makes 3. Now, right now, he is a minus 184 to go over 1.5. So if you can get him at 1.5 somewhere out there in La La Land, I would definitely take the over as well, looking at these game logs. But such is the case on PrizePicks. He has been rounded up to 2 3-pointers. Seems like their lines makers know what they're doing. Now, last season against Utah, 1 game to look at. He only made 1 3-pointer in that 1 matchup against Utah. So he actually ended up going under. So let's look at that matchup against Utah tonight, because they are a good defense. We know that about them. Their overall defensive rating is 4th. And then in terms of field goal percentage allowed, 2nd. In terms of 3-pointers allowed, they are the number 1 team against the 3 ball in the entire league. So Christian Wood might have a hard time here hitting the amount of 3s that you need him to hit, which would be 2 or more if you're looking to take the over. So for me, this is looking like one of those props that I'm just going to fade, because it's already been rounded up from 1.5 to 2. And on top of that, he's going against a really stout defense here in the Utah Jazz. So I'm not really feeling it. But I figured that we would go ahead and take a look at it. So let's go back to the trends. Let's try and touch on 1 3-point prop that maybe we should be looking closer at. And what do we got here? We got Kimba Walker at 2.5. He's at 2 over on PrizePicks. Let's look at Kimba, because that's interesting that he's at 2.5 on multiple books, and he's only at 2 right now over on PrizePicks. So let's do Kimba Walker real quick. And then we'll start taking some questions from chat and digging into some of the props that you guys are liking outside of these trends here. So Kimbo Walker at 2.5 3-point makes so far this season. Going back to that double overtime game against his former team, the Boston Celtics, he drains 3 3-balls. And then against Orlando, comes back with another 3 3-ball performance. Comes down to earth a little bit with 2, but even on today's prop of 2, we move this down, that would be a push. So that's not terrible, right? As long as you're not losing money, that would be a push. And then finally against Philly, 5. So he's actually hit 2 or more 3s in 4 straight games. So technically speaking, 100% hit rate so far. Now against Chicago last season, he played them once. That was on May 7th. Ends up hitting 6 3-pointers against the Bulls. Of course, the Bulls have a totally different team. Kimba Walker's on a totally different team. So situation could be much different here. But if we scroll down and look at the Chicago Bulls, their overall defensive rating, they're 11th. They're a pretty tough defense. Field goal percentage allowed, just 6th. And they rank 5th in terms of 3-pointers allowed. So this could be a tough matchup here for Kimba Walker. Now, if we look at his 3-point attempts, he is attempting 4, 5, and then he shot 11 of them against Philadelphia. So he took a lot more 3s in that one. So if you look at 3 out of the 4 games, not a high volume in terms of 3s. This is kind of probably more of an outlier against Philadelphia. Don't expect him to take 11 3s tonight, but you can see here that he's probably closer to that 4 to 5 to 6 range in terms of how many 3s he'll be taking. So there you have it, guys. Those look like some of the top trends on props.cash. And of course, if you want to see more of props.cash, you can go sign up at props.cash. There's an affiliate link down in the description of this video. If you use that, they give me a pat on the back and tell me you've been a good boy, CJ. Thank you so much for getting new people to sign up for props.cash. So that's about as good as it gets for me. I appreciate you guys if you use that affiliate link. To the chat we go. Thank you guys for dropping all of these submissions in here. Antoine says, only Michael Bridges hit last night. Ingram, Butler didn't hit. Yeah, Michael Bridges was fantastic once again. That was definitely one that we identified early on in the video. We took his points over. I think if you took his fantasy points, he probably hit for you as well. Ty says, second attempt to try to get some money. Just got into all the sports betting. Hopefully I nail some of these picks. I like Derrick Rose and his assists. Okay, let's take a look at it, man. This is for Ty Randolph on the plug. I think I said that right. He likes Derrick Rose and his 3.5 assists. So we're going to dig into it for Ty and do him a solid here and hit some player research on this Derrick Rose player prop. So we've got the assist category fired up here in props.cash. Let's go find D Rose. And he is at 3.5 on props.cash and 3.5 on PrizePicks. So a good start to the season for Derrick Rose. As you can see, he hit 5 assists and 7 assists in his first 2 games, but things haven't been so great for him since then. 3 and 1. So far, he's at a 50% hit rate on 3.5 assists. Now, against the Chicago Bulls last year, his former team, he ends up dropping 6 dimes against them. So he did cover the prop of 3.5 in that one meeting against Chicago. So, I mean, based on the game log so far, do I feel super confident in going over in Derrick Rose and his assists? Maybe not so much. But you didn't say over or under, Ty, so I'm not sure which way you're looking to go here. But he did go over in his first 2 games, went under in his next 2 games. In terms of assists allowed, though, the Chicago Bulls ranked 10th, meaning they're a tough team to get assists on. So I would be careful with this particular prop if you are leaning toward the over. Let's go ahead and pull up a projection here for Derrick Rose to give us a little bit more information to make a little more informed decision. They've got him at 3.9 assists. Let's round it up, call it 4, shall we? And that puts him slightly over 3.5. So this one's a little bit too volatile for me. I'm not seeing enough good, consistent data that says to me Derrick Rose can go over 3.5 assists tonight, and you should feel confident about taking the over. So for me, when there's too much conflicting information, I'm just like, I'm not going to try and figure out that puzzle. That's a fade for me, and I move on from it. Hopefully that helps you out, though, Ty. Thank you so much for that submission, that question. Holmes says, Bridges went over. Yes, he did. Bridges was fantastic once again. He beat up on my Orlando Magic like I told you guys he probably would. He came through and did well. Zaddy says, rough day yesterday. Yeah, there was a lot that was a lot to hate, but also a lot to love. You know, we did hit some good plays, find and identify some good plays, but they're not always going to be 100%. You know what I mean? Not everything's going to work out our way. Jeremy says, had 2 5-player cards, hit 4 out of 5 on both. Hayward and Edwards screwed me. Not sure what you took for Hayward, but maybe you went under because he was struggling lately. It seemed like Miles Bridges had kind of overtaken Hayward in terms of the alpha dog role for the Charlotte Hornets. So maybe you took the under on Hayward and he ended up going over. But yeah, Edwards, if you're talking about like his 3-point prop, he was at 2.5 3-point makes. I think he finished with 2. He shot like 2 for 10. I mean, 20%. But when a guy's getting that much volume, 10 3-point field goal attempts, you got to keep going back to it. And I will again if he's up on the board at 2.5 at some point. Rashawn Moore, got a flex for you. Appreciate that emoji. J-Red says, let's get it, brother. J-Red, one of our community members. If you're not familiar with that, we've got a private Discord chat. We've got a Patreon group where we're all in there mixing, matching different sports, NFL, NBA, esports, NHL. We're doing it all, MMA. So Anthony Taylor says, what's up, fam? Let's get it, brother. That's what we're doing. We're trying to get it. Bam hit last night on points and Bridges. Yes, Bam and Bridges were both good on points. Let's start at Levine, 23.5 points. So we want to go back and talk about a little bit of Zach Levine. Thank you, Moises, for that player prop. Let's look at Zach Levine. Now, currently, as we mentioned earlier in the show, that Zach Levine is a game time decision. So there's no guarantee that he plays tonight, but let's go ahead and assume that he will, that he's going to be a trooper and he's going to find his way out on the basketball court for the Chicago Bulls in a primetime matchup really against this New York Knicks team. This will be a fun one. Zach Levine over on props.cash is currently at 24.5. So he's at 23.5 on PrizePicks. So most sports books have Levine at 24.5. PrizePicks taking the low road here, has him at 23.5. They're basically spotting us a point. Typically, I like to see stuff like that. That means we have a little bit of an advantage versus PrizePicks. So looking at Zach Levine at 23.5 points, we'll slide him down here and things get a little bit better for us. In his last 5 games, he's averaging 25.2 points per game. To start the season off, came out just ripping and roaring versus Detroit, 34 points. Versus New Orleans, 32 points. Covers today's prop of 23.5 with ease. And then in his next 2 games, a little bit more of a struggle. Detroit just 14 And Toronto, 22, putting him under. So he's got 2 overs, 2 unders to start the season out, 50% cover rate. Against New York last year, same situation, a 50% cover rate. Had one game where he went under, had one game where he went over. So things are looking a little dicey here for Zach Levine and this points prop. Let's look at the defensive matchup tonight. Oh boy, it's a sea of red, guys. And red meaning bad. Overall defensive rating for the Knicks, they rank 3rd. Points allowed, they rank 1st. Field goals allowed, they rank 1st. 3-pointers allowed, they rank 10th. And finally, against shooting guards, they rank 7th. So you could probably see why PrizePicks took Zach Levine at 23.5 instead of 24.5. This is going to be a tough matchup if he does play. Not only is he a little dinged up, but he's also not stepping into the most soft, cushy matchup against this New York Knicks team. So be careful if you're looking to take overs on Zach Levine. He's playing a good amount of minutes, 35, 31, 33, and 35. So he's out there quite a bit for the Bulls. Taking a fair amount of shots too, 17, 19, 18, 16. Of course, they got Vuchevich on the team. He's a main offensive cog in this offense. Plus, they've got Demar Derozan out there. So, you know, 1 basketball, 3 big stars. So you got to be careful here with Zach Levine. Let's look at his points projection. We'll round things off here for Mr. Zach Levine and this player prop. They don't seem to have, there he is, 23.1. So they've got him going under 23.5. And if you're playing on some other site where he's at 24.5, I would definitely think about taking the under in this situation. Tough matchup, and he's dealing with injuries. Thank you, though, for that submission, Moises. Hopefully that helps you avoid a potential landmine by taking Zach Levine over points. When you guys leave these props, let me know if you're feeling the over or the under. You're just putting in like Levine 23.5 points. Which way are you leaning? And then we could kind of go from there, over or under. Leave that whenever you leave the props in there. Appreciate that. Bradley Beal under points again, all caps. J-Red says Bradley Beal's going to go under points again. Is Bradley Beal up on the board yet on PrizePicks though? Not seeing him. Not seeing Bradley Beal. But let's look at props.cash real quick. See if we can formulate an opinion on Bradley Beal and his points. If PrizePicks puts him up and he's at 26.5 points, well, you could look and see why J-Red's loving the under here. 23 points against Toronto, 19 against Brooklyn, and 17 against Boston. What happened to this guy? What happened to this guy from last season? Look at these last 2 games here against Philly, 27 and 32. Where's that score at? And while we're talking about what happened to this guy, what happened to James Harden? Anybody know? The guy looks like a little blimp running around out there and does not look like the James Harden we've seen in the past. I don't know what's happening with these 2 shooting guards, 2 of the best in the league too. Against Atlanta last year, he played them once and did not go over 26.5 points. So Bradley Beal under points, if he plays, could be another good way to go. Hawks, they rank 20th in terms of defense against opposing shooting guards. So that's kind of a soft matchup. Kind of a soft matchup against this Hawks backcourt for Bradley Beal. But nonetheless, it's all speculation. We have to figure out if Bradley Beal's going to be out there at all tonight. Wait and see on the news for him. But he's projected at 26.4 points over on Number Fire. So hopefully that helps you out. Thanks for that one, J-Red. Moises with the jokes, the jokey jokes. Let's do RJ Barrett. Let's not do RJ Barrett, man. I mean, there's just so many other different guys that we could talk about. RJ Barrett is like the least most interesting one. James says Mitchell Robinson over rebounds. There we go. So he's taking a stance, a firm stance with the over on Mitchell Robinson's rebounds. Let's see if we could find Mitchell Robinson on the board. I don't see him up on the PrizePicks board, but let's do James a solid favor here and take a look at Mitchell Robinson over on props.cash, because I have a feeling James is probably not playing on PrizePicks, which breaks my heart. I wish you would. I wish you would use promo code Curry to get double your first deposit. That would help me out. But if you don't, that's okay. We're going to look at these rebounds on Mitchell Robinson anyway. Look at what Mitchell Robinson's been up to, folks. 17 boards against Boston, 9 against Orlando, 10 against Orlando, and he falls a little short here against Philly. But hey, Philly's got a tough team. They got a tough team, so I don't mind him falling short against a tough opponent like Philadelphia. Against Chicago here, 8 boards and 11 boards, so he splits, going 1 for 2, just a 50% cover rate against the Bulls last season. Now we go down here and we take a look at the Chicago team. In terms of their rebounds allowed, they rank 16th in center defense, which is the position that Mitchell Robinson plays. And in terms of rebounds allowed, they rank 5th, first in offensive rebounds allowed, and 12th against defensive rebounds allowed. So be careful with this one because Chicago seems to be very stingy. They don't like the other team to touch the basketball. They don't want to give up very many rebounds from what it looks like. So let's click the rebound category here. We'll take a look at Mitchell Robinson. Let's get a projection for him. He's at 8.4, so not seeing much of an edge or much of a difference here. So if you play Mitchell Robinson, probably play the over, but, good luck. I don't think I'm going to take that one, even if they put him up over on PrizePicks today. Let's see what else we got here. Chat, thank you so much for tuning in. If you haven't liked this video yet, please do. We hit over 100 likes in yesterday's video. We're trying to run it back and run those numbers up once again, and definitely subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you guys so much. Appreciate all of the support. Anthony Taylor says, yep, I'm looking for unders in reply to Taylor's hashtag undergang. So we got a lot of fans of the unders on fantasy points. It looks like Luka Doncic under 54 fantasy points. That could be a good way to go. We don't typically cover fantasy points on this particular stream, but let's look at a projection for him just to give you guys an idea. 51.2 projected fantasy points. Is Luka up on the board? Yes, he is at 54. And you can see in his game logs here, 59.5. He goes over 53.8, just barely misses going over 54 fantasy points. 39.7, 28.8, and 37.1. Those were preseason games. So, yeah, 54 seems like a tough number for Luka to hit. He's only done so in 1 out of, 3 games so far? 1 out of 3 games so far. So that could be a good way to go. Thanks for dropping that little gem in there. Moving on down the line here. Blowout possibility. Yep. That's something to always be mindful of. Look at those game totals. Look at those spreads. You don't want to take overs on superstars that could be involved in a blowout because there's a good chance that they'll only play a little bit or maybe even half of the fourth quarter. And that does you no good. If they're sitting on the sidelines, they can't get you any fantasy points. Dre da Moi. What's up, Dre da Kiss? Thanks for joining. Appreciate you coming back. Good to see you again. Let's keep it moving. Demar Derozan over 20.5 points. Okay. DeMar DeRozan, 20.5 points. They need to update his picture, man. He would just be looking raw in a Chicago Bulls jersey instead of that plain Jane Spurs joint. But yeah, let's look at DeMar DeRozan points real quick. We'll go back over here. We've already got it pulled up, thankfully. We can just click a couple of buttons and boom. There you go. It's that easy on props.cash. All right, in 3 out of 4 games, DeMar DeRozan has covered this prop, and he's averaging well over 23, 24 points, somewhere around that range. He had just 17 against Detroit, but comes back strong, 26, 21, and 26. So we already talked about Zach Levine being on this team. Obviously, Nikola Vuchevich is also on this team. Levine's scoring has been down in the last couple games. It looks like DeMar DeRozan's scoring has been up over the last few games. Against the Knicks last year, he ends up going for 10 points. Not a good game, obviously. He goes well under today's prop of 20.5. And then 27 against New York, covering against them. But that was when he was a member of the Spurs. Obviously, totally different dynamic and situation now that he's a Chicago Bull. Looking at the defensive matchup, the New York Knicks, we talked about it earlier. Very tough team, all red across the board. This could be a potentially tough matchup for DeMar DeRozan and Zach Levine and company. So be very, very careful here. But he's getting plenty of minutes, 37, 31, 33, 35, not too shabby. And then he's taking lots of shots, 17, 20, 18, 19. And his field goal percentage, not great for a guard or for anybody really. Sub 50% field goal percentage in his last couple of games. So you'd like to see more conversions on those attempts. A higher field goal percentage means more points, right? That's what we want. 3-point attempts all over the place. He's not taking a ton of threes from the outside, so not going to get a lot of points from beyond the arc. And then in terms of free throws, he is getting to the line with pretty good regularity here in his last 3 games. That's what you want to see. Taking on more of that slasher role for the Chicago Bulls, attacking the basket, getting to the free throw line, getting some easy buckets for you. That's what we like from DeMar DeRozan. Let's get you a projection on this prop. We'll click the points category here. We'll type in DeRozan, and he's at 19.8 points today. So that puts him slightly under 20.5. So, make of that what you will. If you trust and believe and use these number fire projections, then they would indicate you take the under on Demar Derozan. Appreciate that one, James. Thank you so much. Remy, I'd go Jacob. Dude has been pretty solid so far. Good point. Moises, can you check Mike Conley assist? He's been under every game. Michael Conley Jr., Utah Jazz point guard, 5.5 assists. Let's open up his game log real quick. You're right. He has went under against Denver, under against Sacramento, under against Oklahoma City. That's 3 under. So he is 0% at hitting this prop. All right, let's go look at some Mike Conley Jr. Maybe he goes under again tonight as they take on the Houston Rockets in what should be a blowout. Should be a blowout here if Utah comes in and is engaged and plays the way that we expect a team of Utah's caliber to play. So to start things off against Oklahoma City, we mentioned 4, 3, 5. So he's went under in 3 straight games. Not a very good average assist per game number. Currently minus 118 to go over. That's where people are putting their money down. That's what that means, that they're taking the over more than they're taking the under, that they're putting their hard-earned dollars down on the over. They think he's going to go over. And maybe they're looking at last season when he had 4 assists and 13 assists for an 8.5 assists per game average. But I wouldn't get too caught up in last season's numbers. I'd be more focused on this season and the fact that really he's just not dropping a ton of dimes here. And this game probably should blow out. In terms of Houston's defense, they are 21st in the league in assists given up to opposing teams. So let's get you a projection on this number for Michael Conley Jr. And then we will move on to the next chat submission here. 5.8 assists. So that puts him slightly over 5.5, closer to 6 assists. So they think maybe he has a breakout assist game against this Houston Rockets team tonight. I don't know if I'm buying it. This is probably one of those ones where I'm just like, Despite the 100% under rate, I'm just going to go somewhere else, man. Let's see what else we got here. Let's see. Yes. Thank you, Chill Robots. 53 viewers, 22 likes. Come on. Something doesn't add up here, people. Let's go. Let's jack them likes up. I appreciate you, Chill Robots. Appreciate the support. Thank you for being in here. I saw you the other day, so thanks for coming back. Moises, DeJounte Murray is killing the rebounds prop. I'd probably go under because I can't see him keeping it up. Good point. Anthony Taylor, check out these for me, bro. Kemba points, looking to go under. Donovan Mitchell assists and Kevin Porter assists. Well, I will take one of those for you. And I think the one that we should look at is probably Kevin Porter's assist. Because we don't talk a whole lot about Kevin Porter. So let's go ahead and give Kevin Porter Jr. some love. We've got a ton of questions piling up, or else I would take all 3. Let's do Kevin Porter at 5.5 assists real quick for my man Anthony Taylor. All right, at 5.5 assists, you can see it's kind of been up and down. And, due to that volatility, right off the bat, I'm kind of feeling, I don't know if I want to go here or not. He had 3 against Minnesota, comes back with 10. That's a strong game. 3 against Boston, and then 8 against Dallas. So up, down, up, down, up, down, up. You kind of see a little pattern forming here. Is tonight another down game? It could be. I don't know. So far, though, he's a minus 158 to go under. Now, this is at 5.5 assists. If we move him down to 4.5 assists, changes things a little bit, but that was a game from last season. His average looks good, but in this case, his average is really being pumped here by 2 strong games, Oklahoma and Dallas. So I'd be careful with this one. He had 8, though, in a previous game against Utah. That was from last season. And then in terms of assists allowed, they rank number 1, allowing the fewest assists to any team in all the leagues. So you can see why they've got Kevin Porter up on PrizePicks at 4.5 versus the 5.5 where he's at on some other sites out there. So let's get you a projection for Kevin Porter real quick and this assist number. And he's at 5.2. So they got him going slightly over 4.5, but under 5.5. So depending on what site you're playing on, you might want to go over or under on this one. But what else we got? Eric Johnson wants to know top 5 props. Chat, help him out. You can rewind this live stream or rewatch it once it goes up on YouTube. But top 5 props. We talked about a few good ones up at the top of the show. Things are looking a little, I don't know. I'm not feeling great about today as compared to yesterday. Like, there were some ones that really stood out to me. Today, I don't know. You guys let me know what you're really feeling. We talked about Mike Conley assists already. We talked about Rudy Gobert points already. Rudy's been 100% at covering his points prop so far. Julius Randle over 5 assists. Yeah, Ruru, let's talk about Julius Randle. That was one that looked like it had a pretty high hit rate. He's at 5 assists today over on PrizePicks. I'm assuming he's probably at 4.5 or 5.5 on some of these other sites. So let's go find Julius Randle today. Of course, they're taking on the Chicago Bulls. Julius Randle at 5.5 assists. We're going to move him down to 5. And now you can kind of get an accurate depiction of where he's at over on PrizePicks. So he had 9 assists in double overtime versus Boston, 7 against Orlando, 3 against Orlando, falling short, so that puts him under, and then finally 7 again against Philly. So he's kind of a do-it-all big man for the New York Knicks. Gets his hands on the basketball a lot, has a high usage rate, so he's gone 3 out of 4 in covering this prop of 5 assists. That's good for a 75% cover rate. Now, currently at 5.5 assists, they've got him as a minus 144 going under. That's based on where the money's coming in on all these sports books out there. So you could see why PrizePicks has rounded him down from 5.5 down to 5. If we look at Chicago matchups last year, 7, 6, and 3. So he covered in 67% of the games, going 2 out of 3. So pretty high hit rate here for Julius Randle, both this season and last season against matchups with the Bulls. And we go down here, they are allowing the 10th most assists per game, which isn't good. 10 meaning they are a difficult team to get dimes on. So there you have it for Julius Randle. We'll wrap this up here and we'll look for a projection on his assist number. They got him at 5.3. So if you're going to take him any which way, I'd probably take the over and hope for at least a push, but you know, that he goes for 6 assists. What else we got? Honey Badger, if you want a link to the Discord, there's a link down in the description of this video. One single link has a link tree to everything that I'm into, whether it be my PrizePicks deposit link, if you want a deposit bonus on PrizePicks, the Discord link, Patreon, if you want to support my work, you could do that through Patreon. And if you want to sign up for props.cash, there's a link to that in there as well. So everything is in that single link tree link. Donovan Mitchell, Lake. I'm going to just call you Lake or Lackey 4. Hope I'm saying that right. Donovan Mitchell under 25.5 points. Let's look at the spider, Donovan Mitchell. Is he up on the PrizePicks board yet? Is he? There he is. 25.5 for Donovan Mitchell. So we'll pull him up here on props.cash. Take a look at his points prop. Utah taking on Houston, of course. Again, as I mentioned earlier, when you're taking superstars, when you're taking studs like Donovan Mitchell, you got to be careful for these blowouts. You don't want to take an over on a guy if you think the game's going to be in hand by the end of the third quarter, because there's a good chance that they're going to rest Donovan Mitchell. No need to put the extra wear and tear and mileage on his body if the game's in hand, right? So you got to be careful with that. If you think the game stays close, by all means, take the over. Or if you think Donovan Mitchell is one of the main contributors to a blowout, if he's the main reason why they blow out a team, then take the over in that situation. But you got to kind of think about game script, right? How will this game play out? How do you see it going in your head? But so far, Donovan Mitchell in 3 games this season has only covered once, 27 points against Sacramento. That is his season high to this point, which means he's going to have to be really close to his season high to go over 25.5 points tonight. So that one could be a difficult one for him to cover. Against Houston last year, just 1 game in the game log, had 28, putting him over 25.5 points. And then we're looking at the action here, minus 110, not really seeing any movement one way or the other here on this points prop for Mitchell. Houston, we don't have to really say it because, you know, it's already been said plenty by other people. They're not very good. They're not a good team. Their defense isn't very good. They rank 27th overall, 27th in points allowed. So they are giving up a ton of points. So that's a good thing if you are looking to lean over on Donovan Mitchell. But they are good at defending opposing shooting guards, so worth noting there. Mitchell's getting pretty good run, 28, 37, and 34. We'd like to see that stabilize a little bit, kind of down and up there. And then in his last 3 games, 17, 25, and 20 field goal attempts, converting on just 6, 9, and 9. Not shooting the basketball very well to start the season off, 35, 36, and 45%. Let's get you a prop, and let's move on from Donovan Mitchell. A player prop projection here for Donovan Mitchell, not Mitchell Robinson. There we go. Donovan Mitchell, 26.3 points is his projection according to the free projections available on numberfire.com. Hope that helps you out. Moises says, I was leaning towards over on Levine because I expected a bounce back game, but seeing those stats you showed, probably not. Yes, he's a little beat up. He's a game time decision, right? Tough matchup for Levine, so it could be one that you might just be better off leaving alone. Might want to leave it alone. Rudy Gobert over 15 rebounds. We talked a little bit about Rudy Gobert's rebounds. He was at 12.5 rebounds previously. He's now been bumped all the way up to 14.5 on most sports books, 15 on PrizePicks. So it's becoming a little more difficult to take the over on Rudy Gobert. Yes, he's been absolutely cleaning the glass this season, but I don't know, man. I don't know. That number is starting to get awfully high. 15 boards is a lot of boards. Yes, he can do it. He's shown that he can do it, but, might be a fade for me. Gotta see how he does tonight. I'm going to wait and see on this new number on Rudy Gobert before I take the over. Luka Doncic, over 9 rebounds. Okay. We got a little Luka sighting in the chat. Now, Luka's rebounds has been pretty good in terms of taking overs on it. He's been rebounding the ball consistently. That's probably why they got him up at 9, because he was, I think, at like 7.5 or 8.5, and he had actually been crushing that number. So 11, 9, and 15 in his last 3 games. So let's go look at Luka real quick and see if Luka can kind of keep things going tonight against a San Antonio Spurs team that's also very young, inexperienced, not very good. This could be another game that blows out, guys. So be careful with taking overs on superstars in blowouts. So as I mentioned, 11, 9, and 14 to start things off this season. So he's been going well over 9 rebounds. Actually, 1 push in there against Toronto now that we've slid the alternate prop line up to 9 where he's at on PrizePicks. At 8.5, I do like the over. At 9, maybe it pushes. Against San Antonio last year, 9, 12, and 3. So he covered in just 1 game. He actually tied in 1. So you had a 1 tie, 1 over, and 1 under. Not loving that. Let's move it down here and see how San Antonio does in terms of defensive and offensive rebounds allowed and total rebounds. 29th in rebounds allowed. So they are giving up a ton of rebounds. Just like we talked about in the Dorian Finney-Smith prop, they are giving up a lot of boards. Offensive rebounds allowed, 24th, and defensive rebounds allowed, 28th. Let's get you a projection for this Luka Doncic rebound prop. Luka is currently projected for 7.6 rebounds, which is a far cry from 9 or even 10 rebounds, which is what he would need to go over. So be very careful with this Luka Doncic rebound prop. Don't know that I absolutely love it. Charles says, love the content, had to pass by. Appreciate the love, Charles. Hopefully you dropped a like on this video. If it brings you value, if it's helping you out, if it's saving you time in your research and answering some difficult questions on these NBA player props, please leave a like. Please share it with somebody. Thank you so much. Trying to surpass that 1,900 subscriber mark today. We're awfully close. So if you're tuning in for the first time, haven't subscribed yet, please do so. Thank you. Michael Conley, under 5.5 assists. We talked about that one. Talked about Donovan Mitchell's points already. Kimba Walker, under 14.5 points. Okay, let's do it. Let's do Kimbo Walker under points. We talked Kimbo Walker prop earlier. I think it was maybe his assists. So we're going to look at his points. 14.5 points. Let's dig into it here on props.cash. My favorite way to do props research. And I think you can kind of see why, right? They make it super easy to do all your prop research. You don't really have to go outside of their app for anything. So at 4.5 assists, he's at 3.5 here on, we're talking about points, aren't we? Let's do that. 14.5 points. Okay, perfect. Under to start the season off. And then he shoots up to 19 points. Again, I kind of think this is more of an outlier than things to come, an expectation of things to come. 10, 11, and 10, that's the larger sample size, right? So overall, he's just hit he's went under 3 out of 4 times. Let me get it together here. He has went under 3 out of 4 times. So just a 25% cover rate on this prop. Against Chicago last year, drops 33 big points against the Bulls. But that's when he was a Boston Celtic. That's not when he was a member of the New York Knicks. So I'd be careful with this one. It looks like the under might be the way to go. So far, the action is coming in. Minus 116 on the under at 14.5 points. Defensively, Chicago, pretty darn good. I think a lot of this is going to hinge on whether Zach Levine plays or not. If Zach Levine plays, then maybe this becomes even more difficult for Kimbo Walker. If it's somebody else in there and Zach Levine doesn't play, then maybe it's a softer matchup for Kimba, assuming that Levine is given the assignment of guarding Kimba Walker. In terms of minutes, they're all over the place, and it's not looking very good. 36 in that double overtime game, drops all the way down to under 22 minutes, under 20 minutes here, and then shoots back up a little bit to 28. So you guys, maybe you can answer in the chat, do you know why his minutes are all over the place, up and down? I don't know why personally, but in terms of field goal attempts, 8, and 15. So he's not taking a ton of shots. Obviously, there's a correlation here. When his minutes are up, his shots will go up, which means more points. So I don't know what we're going to see out of Kimbo Walker tonight. I don't know if he's going to play 20 minutes or if he's going to play 30 plus minutes, but we can try and pull up a projection on his points for you and cap it off with that. 13.5. They like the under. So there you go. That's probably the way I would lean to. Under on Kimbo Walker's points. Tough matchup here against Chicago. Hasn't been covering this prop very much. What else do we got here? Thank you for that one, by the way, Remy. Thank you. Chris says, Jacob Pirtle over points. Okay. That is a guy that I think we have yet to discuss on this channel, on this stream so far. So he's at 10.5 points. The San Antonio Spurs, they are taking on Dallas tonight, if memory serves me correct. And they are the visiting team, by the way, for what that's worth, what that matters. Jacob Pirtle at 10.5 points. I like to know why you guys, what stands out to you about some of these props. In this case, it makes a little sense here. 10.5 points. He's covered in 3 out of 4 games. In the game that he didn't cover, he came mighty close with 10 points against the Milwaukee Bucks. So a 75% cover rate so far on this 10.5 point prop. So it's really going to come down to how does the matchup look? Does this game stay close? Does it have a high game total? Those are things to consider when deciding to go over or under on some of these props. In 3 matchups last year against Dallas, 2 points, 6 points, and 12 points. So he only covered once out of 3 meetings with the Mavericks last season, 33% cover rate. Now, in terms of the matchup, we talked about that a second ago. Overall, Dallas, not a very good defensive team. They ranked just 20th, so this is, overall not a difficult matchup. Now, when you talk about a positional defense versus position matchup, 18th. They are 18th ranked. So again, not very tough, pretty soft on the inside are the Dallas Mavericks. Not a team that I'm looking to fade players against. They're not a stout defense overall. His minutes, 29.8, so we'll call it 30, 26, 34, 37. Last 2 games he's been getting a lot more runs, so that's what you want to see. And look at this, man. My boy shot 17 times against the Lakers. Good for 13 out of 17. If he shoots that many times again, if this is the start of a trend, we could be onto something here by taking the over on Jacob Pirtle. So let's pull up a projection for you guys. 11.2 points, which puts him over 10.5. Let's ride with it. I don't mind that one. I don't mind the over on that one. That's a pretty solid little nugget you dropped there for us, Chris. Thank you so much. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Everybody, if you haven't liked this yet, let's go ahead and drive this up. We're at 50-ish viewers right now. We can definitely run that 100 plus likes up again. Rudy Gobert over 13.5 points. Yep, we mentioned that one earlier. Jacob Pirtle over points. Yep, J-Red, we just covered that one for you. Jacob over on rebounds at 8.5. Well, we could do that one real quick because we've already got him pulled up. So let's see where he's at over on PrizePicks. All the way at the bottom of the board, he's at 8.5. And you can see he's covered in 2 out of 4 games at 8.5 rebounds. So it looks kind of bad at first glance because it's a 50% hit rate, right? But look at the games that he didn't hit and who they were against. Denver, he still pulls in 8, coming really, really close to 8.5. Then against Milwaukee, he pulls in 8, coming really, really close to 8.5. If one more ball bounces his way in either of those games, he's over. So I don't mind this one. The games where he did cover 13 boards and 14 boards. So it's going to be all about the minutes, as it is with any of these player props, any of these players. They got to be out on the court, right? In order for us to get any kind of value out of them. Right now, though, I will point out he is a minus 134 to go over 8.5 rebounds. What more do you need to see? He's done a pretty good job. I actually think this is one where he can get the job done. Last season, not so good. 5-5-8 against Dallas, 0% cover rate. And then Dallas, they're giving up a good amount of rebounds here. Apparently, they rank just middle of the pack, so this is kind of an average matchup here for Jacob Pirtle in terms of boards. He should be able to get all the boards that he wants. Let's get you a projection on his rebounds. He's at 8.7. So they are leaning toward the over, meaning closer to 9 rebounds than 8. So I don't mind it. Looks like PrizePicks is adding more props to the board as we speak. So thank you so much for that submission, Remy. This a new season, new man. I agree with you, man. I agree, Lakey. Razor Ramon. Oh my God, that's probably one of my favorite WWF, old school WWF, not WWE wrestlers ever was Scott Hall, Razor Ramon. Love that, man. The bad guy. Donovan Mitchell, we talked about his points. Julius Randle, double-double, better. Knicks win. His assist is a good look. Okay. Thursday night football picks. I might do a video. I'm planning on trying to get a video out for a couple of Thursday night football picks. We got a great Thursday night football game. Green Bay Packers, Arizona Cardinals. I took a poll and you guys voted, and most folks voted for NBA. They wanted an NBA stream over an NFL stream. So maybe I'll drop a little 2-pick video for you later, a short one, a little 3-minute or less clip for you guys. Derrick Rose over 12.5 points. Sure. Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. D Rose. We talked about Derrick Rose earlier. I think it was his assist prop. Kind of didn't look great. But his points prop, maybe that's a better way to go if you're looking to play some Derrick Rose tonight. New York taking on Chicago. Going to be a fun game. That should be a good one. 2 of the better teams in the entire Eastern Conference. So Derrick Rose is at 12.5 over on PrizePicks. They've got him at 13.5 right now on most of the sports books out there. But you can kind of see why maybe PrizePicks is taking the lower number, going 12.5 instead of 13.5. 9 and 12 to start his season, both under, and then he goes 23 and 13 going over in his next 2 games. Hopefully he can continue that trend, but we'll see. Right now he's a minus 128 to go under 13.5 points. I'd be interested to see where the money came in on 12.5 points. Fortunately, I don't have that available. But in his 1 game against Chicago last year, he had just 6 points. Not very good. Not very good, D Rose. You're supposed to get up for those revenge games. The Bulls defense, we already talked about, kind of a tough team to score against. They rank 11th overall in total defense, 14th in points allowed. And then against point guards like Derrick Rose, they rank 9th, so top 10 in the league in terms of defending the point guard position. And then going down a little further here, you get a glimpse of his minutes. They're kind of around that 22 to 25 range. You got an outlier here of 28 minutes played against Orlando. So, I have a hard time clicking overs on guys that aren't getting like 30 plus minutes regularly. He's not attempting a whole lot of shots here either, guys. 11, 8, 16, 7. It's kind of all over the place. Personally, probably a little too volatile for my tastes. Probably won't be looking for any kind of Derrick Rose props tonight or going over on him. But for those that are, 13.4 projected points, putting him over 12.5. If you guys have any last minute questions, go ahead and drop them. I will hang on here for about 5 more minutes. It's 12:10 here in rainy, dreary Tampa, Florida. So we'll get the last minute questions in there. We'll take 1 or 2 more. We've already been on stream for about an hour, over an hour now. So appreciate you guys tuning in. Definitely drop likes on this if it's providing you value. Kimba Walker over on threes. Let's look at Kimba Walker real quick. He's at 2. Not sure if I talked about this one or not, but he hit 5 against New York. I'm sorry. How's this thing right? His opponent was New York. He plays for New York. Okay, something's funky about that. I don't trust you, PrizePicks. Let's go look at this on props.cash. Kimbo Walker. There he is. 3-point makes. All right, there we go. So he's at 2. I think we might have talked about those ones, so I'm not going to get too far into it. But 3-3 falls short against Orlando. Actually, that's a push. So if we slide that down, that's a push. And then he goes over against Philly. So yeah, I would lean over on Kimba Walker in these 3-point makes. Worst case, it pushes. Conley over on threes. Jeff, let's look at Michael Conley Jr. at 2.5. He's made 3, 3, 2. Let's take a look here on props.cash just to double check. Mike Conley, not up here right now. Oh, yeah, there he is. Boom. 2.5 3-point makes. Yeah, he comes close against Oklahoma City with 2, and then he has 3 and 3, so he covers in 2 out of 3. That's a 67% cover rate if we round it up. Against Houston last year, goes 1 out of 2, 50% cover rate against them. In terms of how many threes they're giving up, yeah, they're one of the worst in the league. 23rd against the 3-ball, 27th ranked against opposing point guards. So plus matchup for sure against Mike Conley Jr. If we go down here and look at his 3-point attempts, 7, 6, 5. So they're kind of trending down, but around that 5 or 6 3-point attempts per game range. Not a high volume, not like a 10+ guy like a Anthony Edwards or Buddy Hield or somebody like that. So he's going to have to be somewhat efficient on the attempts that he does get. So hopefully that helps you out. Hey, yo. Bad guy. That's right, Travis. Like that. Remy, last one for me. Kelton Johnson over 5.5 rebounds. Love the stream. Thanks for the content. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and supporting everything that I do. Super chat's always available, guys. If you ever want to donate, that's available. I have tip jar set up on Twitter. You can go there if you want as well, or just sign up and be a part of the Patreon group. It's $20 a month. It goes a long way in helping me out as a content creator. You're also going to be in there with 100+ other people talking all things related to PrizePicks. We've got a private Discord chat set up. I put out helpful spreadsheets, do some write-ups and stuff like that. I try to give back as much as I can beyond what I can do in these streams for people. So that is a good way to give your thanks if you love what I do here. Hey, appreciate the wisdom, Curry. I subscribed and liked. Thank you so much for subscribing and liking. Have a great day, brother. We'll catch you in the next stream. Thank you for dropping in. We were going to talk Kelton Johnson rebounds real quick. Let's do it. Where's he at? 5.5. I think he's been doing a pretty good job rebounding the ball this season, if I'm not wrong here. No. Let's just double check, because sometimes PrizePicks can be wrong. Sometimes they can be wrong with their game logs, but that's not looking good so far for Kelton Johnson. No way. Let's go back up here. Yeah, he's been going under 5.5 rebounds more than going over. So 4 against Orlando, 4 against Denver, just 2 against Milwaukee. He has a pretty good game here against LA with 6 boards, but overall, guys, just a 1 out of 4 cover rate. So yeah, that's not a very good number here for Kelton Johnson. 5.5 boards seems too high. Now, if he was at like 4.5 boards, I think that would put a little more pressure on us as PrizePicks players or prop pick bettors. In 3 games last year against Dallas, though, 5.5 rebounds. He goes over with this big one here, 14, and over with 6, but then he falls short in that middle game there with 4. Overall, that's an 8 rebound per game average. If we go back down here, Dallas, not difficult in terms of defense, not difficult in terms of rebounds, total rebounds allowed either. They rank middle of the pack. I think we might have mentioned that earlier with Jacob Podol. But there you go for Kelton Johnson's rebounds. We can get you a projection on that too. 6.5 boards. They like him to go over 5.5. 1 whole rebound over his number on PrizePicks. I think that projection's a little wonky too. I don't know. All right. Vuchevich over rebounds. Melvin, good to see you, my friend. Nikola Vuchevich over rebounds. He's at 12.5. Man, that seems like a mighty big number. I don't know. That's looking kind of sketch to me off of first appearances here. We're looking at that game log on PrizePicks. Let's talk about Nikola. Did they not have his? I mean, are these wrong, guys? You tell me, chat. Are these game logs and PrizePicks wrong? What am I looking at here? No, I think they're right. Yeah, 8, 19, 4. No, they're right. They seemed off for the other one. I don't know. Anyway, Nikola Vuchevich at 12.5 boards is the one that Mel wanted me to take a look at. So let's do it. 15 against Detroit, has 4 against New Orleans, 19 against Detroit, and then 8 against Toronto. So up and down, guys, up and down. I don't like that. I like consistency. I like to see consistent game logs out of guys. But if you believe in patterns, well, this should be another up game for him, right? Up, down, up, down. Could be. Now, against New York last year, he was crushing the glass against the Knicks. 14, 16, 16, and 18, averaging 16 rebounds per game. I don't know how many of those games were from when he was a member of the Magic and how many were from when he was a member of the Bulls, but nonetheless, the matchup against the Knicks, he seems to clean the glass against them. So that's kind of encouraging. Now, right now, he's a minus 122 to go under 12.5 boards. That's where the action's coming in on your various sports books out there. And the New York Knicks center defense sucks. 26 overall against defending opposing big men. And they rank just kind of middle of the pack with 16 or 16th in total rebounds allowed. So there you go. Nikola Vuchevich. Let's pull up a little projection for you. He's at 12, exactly at exactly 12 rebounds. So not much of an edge there. They actually favored the under on number fire. So Montrezl Harrell over 31 fantasy points. We could look at Trez real quick. Where is he at? Wizards. Oh, he's in a Lakers jersey. 31 fantasy points. We'll pull up his game log so you guys can kind of reference that. He's went over in, 2 games? And under in 2 more. So 50% cover rate at 31 fantasy points. We go over to the fantasy points category. We'll type in Harrell. And he's at 26.8 tonight. Let's round it up. Call it 27. Even if we round it up, he's still under by like 4 points versus PrizePicks. So there you go. There you go on Montrezl Harrell. Was Beal up earlier on points? I'm not sure, but he hasn't been covering his points prop. That was one that we talked about earlier. Hasn't been covering his points prop. Razor Ramon says, I'm going to start going under on Karl Towns rebounds. He's all buckets, though. So liking the buckets, not liking the boards. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks again. I'm going to go ahead and get off of here. Hopefully some of the props that we talked about in today's video hit for you. If they didn't, well, we tried our best, right? We researched them together. You saw the projections. You saw all the stats, all the facts, all the data, all the info. And, we're just doing our best trying to get our money in there on the best looking props. But thank you so much for your support. Subscribe and like and share the channel with a friend if you haven't yet. Thank you for your support, guys. We'll